Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and this is Cryptark. $12.99 came out on the Steam store on October 8th. It is a procedurally generated roguelike space shooter in early access, and that is why this video is a dev letter. Dev letter videos for me are videos for early access games where I give my feedback to the developer in question how to improve their game and give you guys an idea of what the game has to offer and whether or not it's worth a look now, which is hard when I considered making a dev letter video for this because the content here is solid, in my opinion. In fact, it's rather fun. I've spent about 4.5 hours on it right now, and it's rather interesting and rather cool, to be honest with you. Now, before I begin, the developers in question contacted me via my Gmail account, specifically to take a look at the game. Again, not requesting specific coverage, positive or negative. They gave me a key in exchange for some coverage, though. And here's this coverage. You guys should know that because the whole FTC guidelines thing, it's all the moral thing at this point. Now, this is a re-recording because of the fact that I wasn't happy with the sound in the first place. People made comments on it, and I realized that I rushed this out. I will still be giving a free copy of the game away, as I said in the original video, and keeping those people as participants in the video in question. So keep that in mind. So let's start a campaign run. Each campaign run is set full of waves at this point. You're trying to make your way to the Cryptark, but on the way, you need to make as much money as possible by going to these ships, destroying their core, and having scavengers who have paid you for this sort of service take the metal and everything that they want off these ships. Now, these ships are abandoned, but they still got, creatures and alien technology in them. So, the idea here is that each wave, I have a choice between 4 different ships to scavenge, each of them all having their own strengths and weaknesses for me to deal with. They also have 3 side missions, and in this case, the bonus is destroying armoring, using no supply pods, and having 6 max hull, which I actually forget about in this run, and you'll notice my hull strength is at 9 at this point. So I'll actually lose that bonus immediately. Now, when you go out for a mission, you spend the money for your armaments at this point. So I spent $114K to get what I need. It's a $100K mission, but I'm hoping that I get the bonuses to sort of deal with that. More money you get, more you can spend on, and obviously money's good thing in this case. Now, each part of the ship serves a different purpose. In this case, the first thing I'm going to immediately do is go after the repair node. The repair system in question will repair other systems that I try to take out. Obviously a problem when one of my missions is to destroy the armoring section of the ship. I don't want it be repaired. And so I need to make my way over there and fight. There are creatures along the ship to obviously deal with as they come along. For example, this spinning blade enemy here at this point, who I can force back with my gun, but I don't want to get anywhere close in terms of melee. Now, 4 different weapons, and you notice at the start I was able to select a loadout. Now, the loadout at the start, I feel like I'm comfortable with the main loadout that they give you, but you can customize a little bit. As you go through ships and find new technology, you will be able to improve your guy in terms of the kind of missions you can go on. Some missions will want you to have a cloaking device, or some missions will make more sense if I, arm up at that point. Now, each mission is procedurally generated in question, and sometimes it can lead to some very strange layouts in question, like, having like 3 keys right next to each other, which open doors. But overall, I felt like the procedural generation, even though it had those moments, that it was like, okay, this is a really weird layout, it did keep things rather nice in terms of, random nature and, sort of flexibility in terms of different difficulties. The different enemies they throw at you really helps that. Now, while they've indicated that they want to add more enemies and more, types of things as they go along here, I felt like the mixture early on here, even after 4.5 hours, 5 hours of gameplay, is still solid. Now, the first couple of missions, of course, you're going to face a couple of the same enemies over and over again, but even then, I feel like the game gave you enough challenge in order to do it. Now, as I go along here, I have 4 different weapons, as I said. I have got my main machine gun, which has an ammo count to it. Now, if I run out of ammo, problem. Supply drops can help me within the level, but as you saw at the start of this mission, I'm not supposed to use them or I'll lose a bonus. So, a little bit of a problem. I got to make sure I don't overuse my weaponry. Now, the strength of this game is the sort of strategy element and the action that comes along with it. The fact of the matter is that each mission has its own set of circumstances that you will have to sort of program yourself for. What should I do in terms of my loadout to deal with these creatures? For example, this huge sentry. If I needed to take it on, maybe something like armor-piercing bullets would help more than anything else. Or just ignore it like I just did because he's not in the way. Now, certain modules you'll have to take care of. The shield generator system, for example, I have to take care of because of the fact that, well, if I don't, I can't get to the core. Little bit of a problem. You get enemies like that, and I really actually do want to point this out. So that enemy was blowing me against the wall. There are good combinations of enemies here, from, enemies that, charge at you to enemies that mess around with you in certain ways, like that wind portion. Now, by itself, not much of a problem. But if you get a blade on the wall, for example, right next to it, yeah, a bit of a problem now. Or if it's pushing you into enemy fire, okay, major problem. I felt like the game's combat system really emphasized, like, multiple character interaction in terms of creatures. Like, dealing with one creature by itself became rather easy, but dealing with multiple at the same time, this is becoming a problem. The controls are snappy. I did use a controller for this. You can use the keyboard and mouse, and you can rebind your keys. For some people, that's going to be easier because of the sort of aiming controls, maybe easier for you on the mouse portion. But overall, the controls are rather nice. Everything moves rather smoothly. Everything's sort of snappy in terms of execution. You feel the impact of your bullets. Everything is great about the sort of control scheme of this game. Honestly, I mean, I'm sitting here and saying a lot of good things about this game, and I have to say, it surprised me. I know that early access gets a stigma about it, but the game's initial presence, I'm like, okay, it's another, roguelike, space shooter. Okay, we've seen a bunch of them before. It reminded me a lot of Galaxy, but it feels a little bit better than Galaxy. Now, while it may not have the presentation elements of Galaxy, it does definitely do some things differently. And, like, for example, this core portion, the fights can be interesting when they get down to it. I didn't go after the alarm module, so it's triggering an alarm, which is a major problem for me, considering that's more enemies I have to deal with. Now, I was able to deal with them in this case, but maybe I should have gone after that before. But I also have a time limit to deal with. There are so many levels of complication with the fighting here that all feels natural. Some of the times with these, like, roguelike shooters, they add mechanic upon mechanic upon mechanic, and they don't do justice to each mechanic, and it all feels, like, rather muddied. That's not the case here. I felt like every mechanic had a point and did a specific job. The stations, the tech advances, the ability to go after certain objectives, things like that, the class of ship. It did it rather well. And I felt like for an early access game, it understood what early access was supposed to be at this point. Basically, they're asking, look, we need feedback. We need feedback on what can we improve in this game. And I do have some comments for it, but when it comes to mechanics like risk and reward, okay, do I go after that module to, improve myself? Do I, try to use 6 max hull even though I know I'm not that, great at this game yet? Very, very smart decision making, and it rewards the player for smart decision making. Fighting feels fresh. Like you saw earlier on, things like reflective barriers, where you would fire your weapons at it and it would fire right back at you for certain cores. I like that. I like the mix-up of weaponry once you start getting items. That's the one thing I will say to the developers in question. I would like to see a little bit more of a variety at the start. Even maybe randomizing it or procedurally generating it. Obviously give certain things like the shield and the spike in order to do melee damage, but that could help in terms of the start of your game, because the start of the game, the first level always feels, it doesn't feel the same necessarily, but it feels a little bit samey after a while. Presentation wise, I really love the actual presentation of, like, this guy talking on the monitor here. It feels, I'm not sure what exactly cartoon I'm thinking of, but it reminds me of an old school cartoon where it's just like, it's a mixture between Star Fox and that. And the characters seem interesting. You don't get to know a lot of them, and I would like to see more story elements to it. But honestly, it gave enough of a character with just the facial expressions and sort of the tone of voice that I felt like it did it justice. Also, features like this. So in this level, there's a sensors that are blocking my sensors at this point, which means I don't know what the ship's layout is. And so now I'm looking to see, okay, I need to get that repair node first, so I need to find a way in here at this point. Luckily, I bought a key at the start of this mission knowing that I couldn't destroy the door locks, so I was rewarded by being able to get right to the repair node by going through that door. Now, I switched up my weapons this mission, so I went with a faster machine gun in question, as well as a shotgun, an EMP grenade, which I'll get to in a little bit, and my regular shield. You do have weapons that do reasonably different things. The shotgun, obviously, very good at close range, but doing a lot of damage. Obviously, for the zip, it's more so... It is also a close range weapon, but it's more so, purling the enemy and keeping them back at times and dealing with them. In terms of weapon variety, when weapons are specialized, it does a very good job. Like the EMP grenade can actually disable entire modules for a period of time and let you get a lot of damage into them. And so there's reasons to take them in certain cases. Again, planning is a main part of this game that really rewards smart planning. Now, I need to talk about a little bit of negatives here. And, there are negatives that I can see off the top of my head here. The progression in terms of difficulty, I feel like there needs to be a little bit of a change up there. The first two levels, I feel like do a good job in terms of, okay, first level to second level, it does ramp it up a tiny bit, but not too much. But once it gets to that third level, things get a little bit more hectic. You start getting level 2 things, and honestly, it feels like you get really overwhelmed rather quickly. I do want to see a little bit of a change in progression there. I felt like it needed a little bit of a difference. Not too much. I felt like you want to keep the difficulty up there, and you want to keep them on their toes, but I feel like it's just a little bit too much in terms of the overall game and, the learning mechanics. Honestly, beyond that, though, in terms of the gameplay in question, there are moments where you have problems with the radar, and in terms of using the waypoint system. So I can set down a waypoint to go to a certain area. It doesn't take into account certain things like locked doors, and if I don't have a key, well, wait a minute, how am I going to do that? But at times it also really screwed up in terms of the pathfinding in question. So, for example, if there was a little opening it thought it could get through, but in fact it couldn't, it sometimes decided that it needed to go through there, and I don't know how to actually get through there. Or it would take me completely across the map in order to get somewhere when I would be able to easily go through one door and I'd be there. The system really needs an overhaul, unfortunately. So I relied on my own navigation skills. That's definitely something they need to take care of. Now, you saw there a little bit earlier that I'm actually able to take out projectiles at times. Like certain projectiles I'm able to deal with at this point, which I like. I like being able to use the projectiles against my enemy. You see the EMP grenade actually disabling this turret for a little bit so I could, look around for a little bit more. There's smart design all over the place here. And again, while I don't like necessarily looking at early access games all the time, I enjoyed myself with this game throughout its experience. And I can't help but recommend anyone who's seeing what they like, seeing what is on screen and liking it, but not only that, have seen my past videos on space shooters and my, hesitation on some of them. Even Galaxy, where, I think I gave it a 75 out of 100 in terms of the overall score, or maybe it was a 70. It still doesn't compare to this, in my opinion, even in this early access state. Again, it's not a perfect game, and I will include some things that I think can help the game in question. But if you're thinking about, supporting the game and thinking about, the early access and everything like that, I will say this. Along with Darkest Dungeon, this is one of the only early access games I will recommend in its current form. Because even if nothing else comes of it, I feel like you will get your money's worth. And that, is hard to say, especially when I'm very, very cost-minded in terms of gaming at this point. So, again, great job by the developers. Now, for anybody who doesn't want to listen anymore, I'm going to talk to the developers for a little bit in terms of what I think can be improved. Now, again, great game. I feel like, you've got a very good base here. I think in terms of your variety concerns, I think there are ways that you can deal with that. Your cores, I think, is one way of doing it. So each system seems to have a specific defense system set up for it. I do like that to a certain extent. Like the shell system where you have the shell with lasers on it. Okay, I like the fact that each defense system has a little bit of a known quality to it, so I know how to deal with it. But I still think you could add variation to it. I do think, like with the lasers ones, giving it maybe a different, higher, faster laser or changing up the speed of where the firing comes from can help, and color coordination with that. Like, okay, it's a red shell. What does that mean at this point? I think that's a good way to add variety to your game, considering that you do seem to have a good amount of variety in terms of system scanning options and AI scan options in terms of enemies. So that's a good way for you to take what you've got and just alter it a little bit to get more out of it, in my opinion. One other thing I would recommend in terms of your weaponry system, again, like I said before, randomize a little bit more at the start, maybe. Give a little bit or take away some options so that it forces the player to do some things differently. You could do that sort of narrative-wise in terms of, okay, that shipment didn't come in, or, we found this, equipment lying around kind of stuff. I also would say that in terms of your passive skills, maybe I haven't run across it yet, but I would like to see some maybe movement-based ones. Considering that movement is such an important part of this game, I would like to see maybe like a boost system in terms of maybe one of the passive modules in question, or usable modules in question, or maybe even that taking up a weapon slot entirely. Because movement seems to be a rather important part of the game to, avoid damage and everything, but not only that, be able to get through certain areas. You have a cloaking system, for example. I'd like to see that taken to the next level as well. I would work a tiny bit on the narrative. I think games like this, okay, you don't necessarily need a strong narrative at this point, but I think you introduce the characters and the art style so well that I think you can do something with it, and maybe give a little bit more characterization to these characters here and their backstory. While it's not necessary, and that's completely up to you, you did draw me in with the characters, especially their designs and the artwork. So that is a rather easy thing to work off of at this point to push your game to the next level and maybe get another segment of the market. Enemy variety, I feel like early on you guys actually do a reasonable job of it. You keep it rather basic, but you're trying to get the player accustomed to your game, and I think you do that rather well. Again, like I said, I would like to see a little bit more progression in terms of the difficulty setting from the second slot to the third slot, but overall, I feel like you did a good job there. I mean, to be quite honest, the visuals of your game is good. I do want to see a little bit more variety in terms of color schemes. Like, once I go to, I see a lot of the same colors in terms of these ships. And while, yes, dark colors, metal-like colors, I think, additional lighting sections, or, maybe a ship that, maybe a little bit like, I don't want to say Star Trek-esque, but, have a little bit more color in it may help in variety just because of it being so different. Again, love ideas like this reflective shield where you force the player to, change their style up at the utmost, discretion. Like, oh, wait a minute, I can't keep on firing at that or I'm going to take damage. So stuff like that. Honestly, in the end, Cryptark is a game that I feel deserves its place in the marketplace now, and almost the early access may hurt it in the end, because of the fact that while giving free content updates for regular games is great, I feel like this game could stand alone on its own outside of early access, and that's a testament to the quality that I see of the gameplay here, as well as the production value. Again, you see games that come out in early access that are obviously missing something. I don't feel like this game is necessarily missing something. I feel like it could be added to, but for $13, I can't think of games where you get, I'm going to go back to the games like Darkest Dungeon, where I feel like I've already gotten my money's worth out of this game. And considering that I probably will play this game more often, maybe like a run or not a night, even though I have so many things to look at. That is again a testament to the game in question. So my go on Cryptark is, well, it's a resounding yes. All right, this is Dragnix signing out. Tomorrow will be Human Resource Machine, because we all want to be part of the machine, and it's going to be an interesting next week because I think I'm going to change up my style a bit. Again, giving you guys information, but I want to try something different. So keep that in mind. I will see you all later. Again, if you like this video and you want to share it with a friend, that would be great. Again, I am trying to make a career of this, and I'm being more conscious about needing to, step up my game in that. I've been doing more with Facebook, which I do have a Facebook group if you are interested down below. I will leave the Steam review down below because I will do one for this one, as well as, ask you guys to comment, see what you would like to see changed on the videos. Subscribe, all that jazz, and I will see you all later. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this content and want to see more of it, you may want to hit that subscribe button on the left-hand side. If you like this video and want to see more of this content, take a look at this video on the left-hand side as well. And if you missed my last video, take a look at the right-hand side. Once again, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.